Hello, my name is Pastor Eric Gaynor. I want to welcome you to our Bible study here online at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. Today we have a special presentation in the spirit of our adult forums that we used to have here on Sunday mornings before the pandemic hit. On these forums, we'd often invite members of our own congregation to come and share about special projects in their work or testimonies from their life or about special trips that have made an impact on them. In that spirit, we welcome today Ally Sadowski, who will talk about how she found her calling through Holy Trinity, where that led her, and also a special insider look at her time as an intern at Washington, D.C. Let us welcome Ally.
Good morning. My name is Ally Sadowski. Some of you might recognize me as Mike Sadowski and Joan Agard's daughter, but most recently I've been involved in team inclusion at Holy Trinity, which is the committee that works to bring LGBTQ+ inclusivity to our congregation. I've been attending Holy Trinity my entire life. I was baptized here in 1997, and that's me in the white dress right there as a baby, and then all of my family, and not me, on our patio. Growing up, church was mostly about my younger brother, Will, and I behaving well enough at the 11 o'clock service so that our parents would buy us a donut afterwards. This is a picture of my brother, Will, and I in the bouncy house with the Groenvelds at a church celebration, and then you can see a matching outfit with my mom and I at a Halloweeny roast with Luke Groenvelds showing off his photobombing skills. But beginning in confirmation and continuing through high school, I really found Holy Trinity as a community of love and support, and a lot of times goofiness, that encouraged me to develop my passions, gave me the opportunity and challenged me to see new perspectives, and develop my voice and opinions as to what I saw were injustices in my community and beyond. I was able to gain those different perspectives and understand different experiences in part of because I traveled with youth group. I traveled to New Orleans after it was still suffering from the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and I first understood what environmental racism was. While the destruction of the hurricane covered the entire city due to racially discriminatory housing practices and wealth inequalities, nearly 70% of poor people affected by the storm were Black, and in communities that were flooded most severely, 80% of the population were people of color. By the time I had returned to Katrina in 2011, nearly 1 in 3 Black residents did not return to the city. Here's some pictures of us in New Orleans. The next year, I traveled to El Salvador, where I first understood the role of U.S. foreign policy and responsibility for global poverty, which includes addressing degraded environments. All these experiences led me to want to major in environmental science in college with a double minor in both marine science and global poverty. I loved the logical and statistical challenge of explaining climate science and developing solutions. But within developing those solutions, I saw that it required not only science, but an understanding of history, culture, and policy. Holy Trinity taught me to see environmental science and climate science through an intersectional lens, or in a way that demonstrates how different individuals and groups relate differently to climate change based on their sex, their gender, where they live in the world. In college, I focused on that scientific side, completing a thesis on soil dynamics post-Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Here's a picture of me presenting my thesis in college. But post-college, I felt limited in the bounds of strict scientific research and wanted to explore the solution side to environmental science, working to understand people's experiences, culture, and policy options. I was lucky enough that Alex King and Brewster King's daughter inspired me to apply to an internship in the Senate after she had a great experience working under Chuck Schumer, the Democrat majority leader. Thankfully, I was able to leave my parents' house, and I applied, and I was accepted to Senator Feinstein's office, who's been California's senior Democratic senator since 1992. Here's a picture of my brother and I think around post-2011 in front of the Capitol. While in Senator Feinstein's office, or as everyone would say, DF's office, I understood the daily workings of a legislative office. As an intern, I was responsible for office tasks like printing reports and delivering them to different offices. The senator gets over 1 million pieces of mail to her office every year, and interns read every single one of them and sort them into correct folders for constituent correspondence where someone higher up in the office responds. But this is something special about the senator. If you are from California and you write to her, you will receive a response. And if you wrote about bike lanes, you might even receive a response that I partially wrote. The other way that the senator and the office mainly interacts is with constituents on the phone. You can always hear the phrase, call your congressman, call your senator, let them know what you're thinking. Chances are when you call in, you will be talking to a 19 to 23-year-old kid, so this is my plea. Please be nice to them. The phones are essentially a comment line. You can call to register your opinion and the office will record it. A little secret, some offices don't concern themselves with constituent comments, but Senator Feinstein took them very seriously. She would get a report every day about what we had heard, and she often cited comment numbers when advocating policy positions. Here's a picture of my fellow interns and I next to the senator on the last day of our internship. Again, I plead with you, please be nice to interns on the phone. I worked up to 5 hours a day answering phone calls to the office, and that included throughout Trump's first impeachment and the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. You always had to deal with individuals with closed-minded to the senator's policies or having different opinions than you, and many times they were cruel in their delivery. But my faith challenged me to approach these conversations and understand where people's anger came from, why they were terrified, and then try to build some kind of rapport. I couldn't promise anything on behalf of the senator or quell their worry in that moment, but I could be directly involved in communicating their frustration, pain, and if I was lucky, gratitude toward the senator. I think we are all called into some form of advocacy to call out the injustice that not only we experience, but more importantly, those without the same privileges as us experience, whether it be working in Congress or attending a local protest. Reflected in Holy Trinity's welcome statement, my faith and drive are centered around reconciliation. In the most basic terms, reconciliation can be defined as the action of making one's belief or view compatible with another. But within a faith and policy system, it requires an understanding of how things are broken and who disproportionately feels hurt because of those broken things. In today's society that is people of color, especially women of color, and communities still struggling for basic human rights, whether it be access to a healthy environment, access to health care, affordable education, or basic dignities like the right to be who you are or love who you want. Sometimes I struggle with citing my faith in this quest, because people who often cling to their faith use it to justify hatred. I remind myself that that work also comes with reconciliation, how it is only one part in this greater system that is broken. I see Holy Trinity at the forefront of this solution through our inclusion with RIC, our response to this pandemic being scientifically minded, but also working to serve our community, and the desire in this church to address racial inequality. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the January 6th insurrection in this talk. One of my favorite things to do as an intern was to give tours of Congress. What some might not know is that all the Capitol buildings, the Capitol itself, the Senate buildings, the House buildings, are connected by underground trains and tunnels. As an intern, you can lead tours through those tunnels and throughout the Capitol. My parents came to visit me last February, and here's a picture of my dad and I next to one of my favorite parts of the tour, a statue from the National Women's Party gifted to the rotunda. It's a statue of Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony. In the back, you can see an unfinished stone. It represents the unfinished effort towards women's equality. I thought about that stone a lot when I was watching stormers make their way to the Capitol. I thought about how when I was trained to give tours, they told me in case of an emergency to use a flagpole to defend myself. But then as stormers actually made their way into the Capitol and through the halls, I became scared because I knew where the doorways led to and how those with violent intentions could not only quickly access elected members of Congress, but their unassuming staff that worked in the halls. On January 6th, the violent threat to our democracy came from a very small number of people, but I don't think it's sufficient to state that it came just as a singular event. The actions of these individuals were based upon lies that worked to invalidate Black voters in Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Detroit. On January 6th, the presence of the Confederate flag, the photos of white men mockingly recreating George Floyd's death, or of Capitol Police taking pictures with insurrectionists are not a coincidence, but a reflection of the deep roots of white supremacy has in our political system. A college professor once told me that there are no bad actors in politics, only systems that reward bad actors. That's where I see my faith and reconciliation come in again, working to understand the entire political ecosystem that rewarded those who drew from racist, sexist, xenophobic themes. And most importantly, understanding these systems doesn't come without accountabilities of the way I have inherently benefited from those same problematic systems and the discomfort that can arise with those realizations. Pastor Eric challenged me to include scripture in this Bible study. Weird. But as I was thinking about how I see progressive actions in politics in this seemingly endless divide, I was reminded about learning the parable of the mustard seed in Sunday school. Luke chapter 13, verses 18 to 19. He said, therefore, what is the kingdom of God like? And what should I compare it? It is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his garden, and it grew and became a tree, and the birds of the air made nests in its branches. I like to think that people who work for justice, not just within politics, are mustard seeds, tiny in the face of the deep systemic inequalities built into our society, but with the potential to become a garden where those unjustly suffering can find refuge. And we work to make sure that everyone is included in that garden by fulfilling the promise of our welcome statement, that regardless of your race, sex, gender expression, sexual orientation, physical or mental health ability, faith, doubt, family composition, citizenship, political affiliation, or socioeconomic status, you are included. Thank you.